pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go any further, I'm announcing that two of our council members, Alan McClellan and William McDaniel, are out of the jurisdiction, and they'll not be able to attend this evening's council meeting, but they will be attending by Zoom if possible. So, and all of our votes tonight will be, I'll call a roll for the votes. Okay. Somebody want to give me a motion for the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Do we need to make an addendum to this based on?
Remove it from the public hearing, the one that canceled their application.
Don't they need to approve the withdrawal? Don't they need to vote to allow the withdrawal? I think they need to vote to allow the withdrawal.
Mr. Mayor, if you would leave it on the agenda and then vote to approve the withdrawal of the application.
Okay.
Please.
So my first motion still stands. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any awards recognition tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Okay. We're going to start the public hearing, and just so everybody knows, there's four of them tonight. And what we do, we will present the information, and there's 10 minutes for accumulative for anybody who wants to speak for that particular item, and then it'll be 10 minutes for anybody who wants to speak against it. So when I call, if there's anybody who wants to speak for it that hadn't been already said, and you didn't have to sign up for that. So, okay, first the public hearing, the first reading of ordinance 738.
Mayor and Council, this is an annexation and a rezoning and a variance. The ordinances are broken up by annexation and then another ordinance for the rezoning. So I'm going to present, the way I have my setup for my presentation is to present the ordinance for the annexation first, and then I'll move into the rezoning for the same property on the next ordinance. So application for annexation at 4560 Hog Mountain Road. The applicant is seeking the annexation of the Hog Mountain Road tract parcel that's in unincorporated Hall County to the city of Flowery Branch for the development of 295 multifamily apartments. The site plan shows 3 proposed future developments outside of adjacent to Hog Mountain Road. And then, of course, Hall County has filed an objection to the annexation itself. So this is the site, 4560 Hog Mountain Road, just south of Cash Road on the in between 985 and Hog Mountain Road, and just north of Spout Springs. So the map, the zoning map itself does not show a zoning category because this is, of course, an annexation, but surrounding land uses are R3 apartments that are nearby, HB businesses, and that's where the retail is, where Home Depot and the shopping center is right behind this area. Future land use map, the surrounding land use shows the unincorporated, of course, isn't on the future development map, but it's near activity center retail and adjacent to mixed use as well. The applicant has applied for concurrent rezoning and variance applications as part of the annexation request, which will be detailed in a separate presentation. So that concludes the annexation portion. Any questions for annexation? And we'll move into more detail when we get into the rezoning.
Why don't you go ahead and do the next, and then we can all ask questions about it.
Mr. Mayor, if we could have the public hearing on the annexation first. And then the next one is the public hearing for the rezoning and the variances, please.
Well, I think, do you want to speak for it? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Kirkland Carden. I'm a partner with the residential group, and I'll be here tonight speaking on the 3 different applications related to the Hog Mountain property, but right now I'll focus on the request for annexation of approximately 49.81 acres located along 4506 Hog Mountain Road. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the intent of the request is to annex property into the city limits of Flowery Branch to develop a high-end, mixed-use, multifamily community. The property is currently owned by the Hickman Estate. The proposed annexation is the first step in a 3-step entitlement process. If successful, the next phase would be to approve a rezoning or submit a rezoning application. We believe that the proposed residential development would be supportive of the Stonebridge Village Shopping Center. It would provide the area with new potential patrons that could support the existing retail. The proposed development will have access, direct interparcel connected access to Stonebridge Shopping Village. Future residents will be able to access the existing apartments as well as the shopping center, both pedestrian access and with their vehicles. Per our traffic engineer, this access, we believe, would relieve some of the traffic flow on the main road. As mentioned earlier, currently the subject property is a wooded, vacant, undeveloped lot located just outside the city limits of Hall County, Georgia. It does not provide any economic or monetary value to the tax digest of the city of Flowery Branch. However, if the subject property were to be annexed and rezoned, the property would add to the city's tax digest and begin to contribute monetarily to the city. The city would realize economic benefits from the taxes associated with the property, as well as the increased property value once development is complete. Long term, our vision is to rezone the 3 out parcels that you'll see on the site plan that is marked future retail. We would zone that to allow for neighborhood retail uses that would support the proposed development, as our firm did with the Crested Flower Branch, which was another multifamily mixed-use development we developed in the city of Flowery Branch, my partner, Kurt Alexander, and I believe right now they're building out the medical office. So our vision would be very similar to that project. I submit to you that the proposed annexation and rezoning is in line with the spirit and intent of the Flowery Branch 2041 Comprehensive Plan, which, as you know, lays out the short-term and long-term goals and aspirations of the city leadership. The subject property, as mentioned earlier, is adjacent to the mixed-use neighborhood character area, which supports both commercial and residential uses, such as the proposed development. I believe it would be compatible and successfully coexist with the surrounding areas. The comprehensive plan for the city does indicate that there will be future growth in population, significant growth over the next years. And in fact, the city's population should reach 16,000 residents total by year 2035. The proposed mixed-use development will provide much-needed housing to meet current and future market demands, as well as, no, I already said that, I'm sorry. Next, I would like to speak briefly, I'll actually save that for the variance. I'll save that for a different time. I will conclude my comments with saying this. Top reasons for approving the applications, I believe, would be to support the comprehensive land use plan. Again, if this were to be annexed into the city, I believe the use would be very compatible with the comprehensive land use plan, support the tax digest. Again, this is property that would be annexed into the city, be viewed and taxed as commercial, so no home exemptions would apply to these future residents. It would provide much needed housing to meet market demand. Four, it will improve the aesthetics of the area. Again, this is an undeveloped lot. We believe this would be a good fit for the goals and aspirations for that part of town. The landlord wants to sell the land, and as a property outside the city limits, the city has limited influence regarding the sale and usage of the lot. However, if the application for annexation is approved, this would allow the city to control this development in this area. Approving this plan would help the city facilitate the type of development that they would like to see in that part of town. And six, and finally, the property has several existing conditions which require significant foundational improvements before any kind of development can take place, such as natural features and state-protected streams. There are some significant topography challenges that create some challenges for any kind of development, any kind of future development, limits the type of uses that can be there. Our firm has the experience of developing these kind of projects with tricky terrains such as the Crescent Flowery Branch. So with that said, Mayor and Council, I humbly ask that you, I request approval for our application for annexation. I would love to make myself available in the near future if you have any questions regarding the project. And thanks again for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are.
There's three retail sites at just under 300.
Yes, sir.
And then how many acres in the back of that property can't be used because of the?
I don't know how many can't be used, but I would say a little more than 20 acres is actually buildable. As you know, there's a lot of stream buffer challenges, wetland challenges, and then some topography challenges that just limit buildability to about 20 acres on the site. All right, thank you.
Okay, is there anybody who wants to speak against that proposal? Okay. Now, this is one across the street.
Yes, sir, Your Honor, or Mayor. My comments are directed toward.
If you give me your name and your address, please.
My name is Rick McQueen. I live at 4787 Countryside Drive, Flowery Branch, Georgia. That's in Country Walk subdivision. And my comments are geared towards the total package of all the annexation, because there's multiple pieces of property that are going to be requested to be annexed into the city of Flowery Branch. And if all of those go through, it will create a hardship for us. So if I could proceed with my comments right quick. I'm here today representing Mount Calvary Baptist Church, a cornerstone of this community since 1965. For nearly 6 decades, our church has provided spiritual guidance, support, and outreach to the people of Flowery Branch and Hull County. We have witnessed this town grow and change, and we have always welcomed progress that benefits the people while preserving the integrity of our shared community. However, we stand firmly opposed to the annexation proposals currently before the council. If approved, these measures would create significant disruption to the residents of Hull County and place undue burdens on local infrastructure, schools, and Hull County taxpayers. First and foremost, the proposed annexations would leave Mount Calvary as an isolated island within unincorporated Hull County, potentially violating Georgia Code Title 36, Chapter 36, Section 4, which specifically prohibits creation of unincorporated islands. It specifically states that a municipality may not annex land in a way that, one, leaves an unincorporated area surrounded entirely by city boundaries, two, creates a situation where county access and services are restricted, and three, establishes annexation patterns known as shoestring annexations that rely on narrow connections rather than substantial bordering. This would result in such an unincorporated island severing Mount Calvary Baptist Church from the surrounding county. There are at least 3 Georgia code cases that I could cite for you, and I'd be happy to share that if needed at a later date. In reading through the proposals for each of the properties, in some cases there were traffic studies that were undertaken. Some cases a traffic study was not done. In total, the accretive damage to the traffic was not studied. What happens if all of these proposals come to bear? Nobody did that study. Nobody considered the fact that the schools are currently, they don't have any openings today. The schools would be burdened down if we pass these. Large-scale developments would place a strain on our roads, schools, and emergency services. Rapid growth will accelerate the need for infrastructure changes. The acceleration and deceleration egress lanes would effectively eliminate the parking lot at our church if that were to come to bear. So I'm asking tonight that you consider the fact that the church, who has been a community standard since 1965, consider our impact if you approve any and all of these annexation requests. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Anyone else? Okay, we will close that public hearing. And we now have another public hearing. This is the rezoning for the same property.
Mayor and Council, this ordinance is for the rezoning and some concurrent variances at 4560 Hog Mountain Road. This presentation does not go through the detail that my staff report was in, and hopefully some of that was reviewed. And for the public, my staff report is also attached to the agenda for items such as sewer impacts on this, the semi-report, but not necessarily in this presentation. Of course, the applicant is seeking rezoning at 4560 Hog Mountain Road from Hall County AR1 Agriculture and Residential R1 to City of Flowery Branch, the RMU Residential Multi-Unit. The applicant is requesting a concurrent variance from Table 6.2 to reduce the minimum heated floor area from 1,000 square feet to 656 square feet for studio apartments, from 1,000 square feet to 785 for one-bedroom apartments, the carriage apartments. The location has already been established at the annexation. So that's in our zoning map. We're surrounded by HB and mixed use. Mixed use and activity center retail are the surrounding future land use. And so transitionally, this would be appropriate zoning for what's surrounding. The applicant has proposed 6 apartment buildings totaling 295 units. The buildings proposed are 3 to 4 story splits with 4-story elevations on the back of the building. None of the buildings will be facing Hog Mountain Road. The site plan includes multiple amenities, including open spaces, pocket parks, a clubhouse with community pool, dog parks, grilling areas. All proposed buildings are of similar color, material, and design, creating a cohesive visual relationship throughout the development. I will say a point of clarification from the first paragraph. There are 5 garage units with the carriage style and the single family, I believe, above, and that's where the less than 1,000 square foot units will be on that. So there are also outlots included on this plan that will be within the RMU designation. Future development of these outlots require either a rezoning case to highway business or neighborhood shopping for retail, or a change in conditions to add additional multifamily units. So those parcels could not be developed unless there's something that comes back in front of council. The proposed architectural treatments appear to meet requirements, with the exception of brick and stone veneer, which is prohibited by code and must be removed from the final plans. All final elevations will be compliant to section 10.7, 12.7, and subject to the design review process my staff does under Article 40. This is the concept plan with the buildings, the amenities, and then the smaller buildings are the ones I was talking about where there are garages with the typical studio buildings. There's 5 of those proposed. We have the outlots along Hog Mountain Road, and the applicant has explained there's 2 connections one connection to the north, interparcel access, and another interparcel access to the south, and then the main entrance on Hog Mountain Road. In my staff report, I detailed out the amenities. For the sake of time for tonight, we're going to just point it out in this plan view. A traffic study was provided by the applicant. The conceptual site plan indicates that vehicles flow throughout the development. North access is at Findlay Road, which required easement and construction agreement with the adjacent property owner as the connection would bypass through private property. The south access connection is at Porter Road, is not fully approved at this time, and a right-of-way appears to exist, and the developer would be required to construct the connection to city roadway standards. Right turn lane volumes exceed values provided by GDOT driveway encroachment. Therefore, a right turn deceleration lane is recommended to be constructed at no cost to the city. Left turn volumes exceed the values provided in the GDOT driveway and encroachment control manual. Therefore, a left turn lane is recommended to be constructed at no cost to the city. The secondary gated entrance that's proposed into the development should be constructed in a way as to allow vehicles and emergency vehicles to turn around. Concurrent variance. Table 6.2 requires a minimum for this zoning category. Heated floor area is 1,000 square feet. And again, there's the proposed 665 square feet studio apartments and 785 square feet one-bedroom apartments. So staff recommends approval of the 4560 Hog Mountain Road with conditions as listed in future slides. However, staff, the approval from R1 to R1 and AR1 to Flowery Branch RMU, but staff recommends the denial of the concurrent variance to reduce the minimum heated floor area as the application does not demonstrate a hardship peculiar to the property, which is beyond the control of the application. However, the variance appears in condition 7B for consideration in the event council wishes to approve. So the development is strictly limited to 6 apartment buildings shown on the approved plan. The 5 carriage buildings shall not be constructed or counted towards the overall unit lot total unless and until a variance is granted to reduce the minimum heated floor area requirement, thereby permitting those uses. The total number of residential units within the building shall be not exceeding 295 units. The entire parcel is hereby rezoned to residential multi-unit, and 3 out parcels identified the plan as future phases shall remain undeveloped unless they get a change of condition or a rezoning on those particular parcels. So density shall be calculated on the net basis in accordance with the definition of net density set forth in Article 2, Section 2.2. The final site grading stormwater utility plan shall be substantially conformity to the rezoning concept plan, including all delineated amenities, open spaces, and public gatherings. And no grading, filling, or earth moving shall occur within the 75-foot impervious setback for the state waters buffers without prior approval of the Director of Planning and Community Development. Such activity shall be minimized in accordance to Code Section 27.6B. The building design, drawings, and exterior elevation shall closely mirror the rezoning architectural plans provided, and no brick veneer. And then it's got to go to the design review process through my staff. All internal streets, stormwater management systems shall remain private and be maintained at the owner's expense. Porter Road shall be upgraded by the developer to the city's public road standards, accommodate project access, and proposed access into folk song apartments must include temporary construction easements and permanent access easements. A signage plan and landscape plan to be submitted for review by staff. And then the transportation conditions kind of mirror what we had stated earlier about the left turn lane, right turn lane in, based on GDOT driveway standards, and our city engineer will review that for compliance. and relocation of any utilities currently beneath the proposed deceleration lane to be moved at the developer's expense. So here are the variances that I had mentioned. These are located in the conditions to be considered, or they can be removed if a motion is made to do so. Public utilities. So the developer shall connect sanitary sewer via gravity flow. The design professional shall coordinate with the City of Flowery Branch Public Utility Director for approval of sewer connections. That's it for mine. Any questions?
That's 985, right?
That's for an engineer to come up with a design on that. That would be an assumption. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I've got one. I've
You've
got a
got one.
question. Go ahead, Alden. Go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds like the same question as the mayor. So the condition is for gravity flow for connection, and the connection would be designed by an engineer. Yep. We have a traffic impact study that's shown on there, and I'll let the applicant answer that question about the direct number of traffic counts. Thanks.
Okay, we have 10 minutes for anyone who wants to speak for it.
Thanks again, Mayor and Council, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all. For the record, my name is Kirkland Carton. I live at 3109 Abbott's Oak Way, Duluth, Georgia, 30097, and I'm a partner with the residential group. Real quick, I'll try to not speak in detail about the rezoning since I touched on that in the first presentation, but to sum it up, we're requesting annexation and rezoning to RMU, and we believe that the proposed rezoning is in line with the future comprehensive land use plan for Flowery Branch, and we believe that the proposed use would strengthen the existing uses in the area, such as the retail. As for the traffic study, look, full disclosure, I'm not a traffic engineer. I do have some experience working in traffic data. However, I will say as a result of the study, our traffic engineer found that the proposed development, which as shown in the site plan, will have a roundabout, will have will have pedestrian access and car access to the sites to the north and south of the property. It's our traffic engineer's belief that having that additional flow, opening that up, will actually alleviate and take more cars off Hog Mountain Road, which again should address traffic congestion and also improve pedestrian safety. For those who are familiar with the area, you know that there's not a sidewalk, mixed-use trail for people to walk up and down that road. We will be providing sidewalk throughout the site to get people to and from or north and south of the site. Second, I do want to mention again the 3 out parcels for future retail. Again, that is part of our business model to come back and rezone these parcels for retail. In fact, if we're successful here, we'll come back and submit an application quick to get that rezoned because, again, that is part of our business model to help us underwrite this site. Next, I want to talk about the sewer impacts. We're willing to comply with all local and state requirements regarding sewer. We have no objections or problems with the proposed conditions, including the transportation recommendations from staff. And then next, I would like to speak briefly about the request for the variance regarding the dimensional requirements. So we are asking for slight deviation from the dimensional requirements that are mentioned in Article 6, Section 6.6, Paragraph C. The RMU zoning district establishes a minimum of 1,000 square feet per unit, regardless of the bedrooms and bathrooms per unit. So obviously we'd like to have more diversity in units to appeal to different parts of the market. Now our plan proposes to develop studio apartments at 656 square feet, one-bedroom apartments at 785 square feet. We have 2 bedrooms at 1,159 square feet, ranging from 11,000 and change square feet. And our 3 bedrooms are penciled at 1,275 square feet. So the average apartment unit size will come to 985 square feet per unit. Now, this deviation is comparable with existing multifamily communities within a 2-mile radius of the property. So Folksong Apartments, just north of the property, the average size for unit there is 1,088 square feet, with units ranging from 714 square feet to 1,500 square feet. Crested Flower Blanche, the other one we developed, 1.4 miles away. The average square footage for that property for their apartments is 934 square feet per unit, with some units as small as 672 square feet. So the requested deviation would be on average for 1.5% below the established criteria per unit. However, would be in line with the existing multifamily communities located within the city. A literal interpretation of the RMU dimensional design requirements would deprive the applicant of a development that is commonly enjoyed by other properties in the area and deprive the property owner of rights that are commonly enjoyed on adjacent properties in the city. The requested variance is the minimum variance necessary to make this project possible, to make it feasible. Without this requested variance, we would not be able to develop the proposed mixed-use community. Also, the site has, as I mentioned before, significant topography challenges and wetland challenges that limit the buildable area of this site, as I mentioned earlier. If we were to build 295 units, all at least 1,000 square feet or greater, as you can imagine, that would increase the footprint of the buildings. That would present a challenge to us because we also have to meet the parking requirements. And as you can see on the site plan, if you increase the footprint of buildings too greatly, now you're moving into the stream buffers. You're moving into the wetlands. So it's not really feasible to have 295 units square feet without cannibalizing the proposed commercial. And we don't want to do that. Again, we believe this site would be strong with a mixture of multifamily and Class A commercial inside. So that pretty much concludes it for me. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Oh yeah, and one more thing I would like to add. As for some of the comments I heard during the annexation application, I would love to make myself available for those who have any concerns, council members and people in the community, and I would love to work with them proactively to see if we can find common ground to address their concerns. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I know one big concern I have with Hog Mountain Road is just there's not much of a shoulder. It's extremely narrow, 2-lane road. And already one apartment complex there, additional 295 units. Right around Sugar Hill, Buford, Duluth, and you see where there's areas where there's a decent volume of apartments, multifamily, and the road network leading to those is just more robust than what Hog Mountain is. So, in your experience,
Yes, sir.
have you ever seen where 2 apartment complexes have coexisted on the same road in such a narrow, almost archaic fashion as far as roads go when it comes to servicing apartments?
I have, and I've seen those examples in North Fulton, North Gwinnett. I would like to add that currently, as to your point, you have a 2-lane narrow road. I believe with the development of this site, us adding an additional road, right, that back road, our future patrons, I'm not going to say they're not going to come off onto the main Hog Mountain Road, but it will help alleviate some of the potential traffic congestion because now they can come into the shopping center or they can come out the way. That will be provided through the existing apartment community. I believe this site's actually pretty strong on infrastructure-wise because there's the new roundabout. See, if there wasn't the roundabout and it was just the roads coming together and it was a right-hand turn only, then I could see it being a real problem. But when you have the roundabout there, I really think that's going to help with the flow of traffic. You know, it's been documented that roundabouts reduce rear-end collisions because you have a constant flow. So I actually think this isn't worse. This is actually a pretty strong location. But with that said, look, parts of town you talk about, I come from. I just came from Duluth. It's congested. But I also add that this part of Georgia is going to see new residents move here. They're going to see population growth. Our underwriting, our market study shows that this area is growing. You're seeing strong growth, and it's a beautiful thing. The proposed development we're offering today will provide Class A multifamily housing that will help meet those market demands for housing that you're seeing in your city. So again, I feel the growth, the traffic congestion is part of the growing pains, but I do feel we're being good stewards and trying to provide serious solutions to traffic congestion, and we're meeting a market demand of housing in the city. But with that said, you know, again, I'm going to offer myself to you outside the public hearing. I'd love to sit down with you, a copy of the traffic study, and maybe my partner, Kurt Alexander, who's more experienced in traffic studies, and see if we can maybe address your concerns.
Let me ask you,
Yes, sir.
have you got, you're talking about the traffic moving on that road right there beside the pet shop, I think.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right. Have you got the deal, or is it, you still have to work that out?
We still have to work that out. Now, depending on, you know, how this goes here, right?
Yeah, I
We're
got you.
not going to enter into contracts to.
How about the one you talked about, folk song? You're talking about traffic from your complex going through folk song complex?
No. If it would be, well, you'll see the site plan, correct?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So to the north, we would build a road leading up to the property line that connects with the existing road network of the existing multifamily community.
You mean folk song?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Right at the top of the focus
Right,
hall.
yeah.
And we would do the exact same thing to the south of the property, building up to the property line that leads to the shopping center, all right? Depending on the success of this application, we would engage the folks at the south of the property. Correct me if I'm wrong, there's like an auto use or something like that back there. We would engage them to provide additional, I guess, to complete the road access into the shopping center. And I'll also throw out there, too, if you would like to add a condition to the zoning application saying, whereas we would provide interparcel connected access, we would be open to that condition.
Okay.
And you guys are saying that y'all could do gravity-fed sewer?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So you would not need to use the pump station over at Flowery Branch High School?
I don't believe so, but I will leave an asterisk out there and say I'm not an engineer. I would hate to misspeak and pay a price for it later. So that's going to be a question I'm going to punt at a later time where I can get with my partner, Kurt Alexander, and we can answer that question in detail. But again, I'll say, look, if there were a condition related to sewer, we would support that too. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank Thanks again for giving me the opportunity.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak against that proposal? Okay, so that one's closed. And we'll move to the next public hearing of ordinance 742.
Mayor and Council, this will be the same kind of procedure. We'll move through the annexation ordinance part of it, and then we'll go to the rezoning shortly after that. So this is a public hearing, first reading, to consider the approval of ordinance 472 for the annexation of two tracks, 4651 Hog Mountain Road and 4665 Hog Mountain Road, into the city of Flowery Branch. The applicant is seeking those two addresses from unincorporated Hall County to the city of Flowery Branch for the development of 116 units of attached townhome subdivision. Site plan indicates that 14 of the units will be rear-loaded townhouses, while the remaining 102 will be front-loaded townhomes. Hall County has filed an objection to the annexation. This is the location, to the north was the previous applicant's presentation, and this is the two parcels on Hog Mountain Road, slightly north of Spout Springs. In the annexation, if both of them get approved, then there will be a potential landlocked portions of 4 to 5 parcels. Right now, there's connectivity to Hall County. The applicant is proposing a strip along the southwestern property line in order to have connectivity, should that happen, to Hall County, to the parcels that are to the south of it and over towards Spout Springs, the white area. Similar land uses surrounding it. HB, we have some R1s to the north and to the east. We have HB to the south and to the west. We have other residential to the east. Future land uses is very similar with the previous application: activity center and mixed use, and some HB zoning. And the applicant has applied for concurrent rezoning and variance applications as part of this annexation request, which will be detailed in a separate presentation. So that concludes my annexation ordinance presentation. Any questions? Okay.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak for it?
Excuse me, yes, sir, Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Shane Lanham with Mahaffey Pickens Tucker LLP, here on behalf of the applicant, requesting your approval of the annexation as was described by Mr. McCreary. For this portion of the meeting tonight, I'll limit my remarks to the annexation component and get into more detail about the proposed development. During the rezoning section, we have a PowerPoint presentation for that, but I'll reserve that to that second part. Relative to the annexation component, I would just respectfully request Council's approval of that annexation. We submit to Council that the subject property is eligible for annexation. It meets the required criteria set forth in state law relative to eligibility of property for annexation into cities. We submit it would not create an unincorporated island. As Mr. McCreary described, we have proposed a strip to remain outside of city limits, to remain in Hall County, that would prevent the creation of an unincorporated island. And would also submit to Council that the proposed annexation represents a natural extension of the city limits, which currently extend farther to the east, south, and north than the subject property. So we're sort of closer into the center point of the city than the radius that would extend out beyond. There's property adjacent to us to the south that's already within city limits. So we would submit that the property is a good candidate for annexation. The annexation would, of course, grant the city control over that property. And so I'll conclude my remarks there relative to the annexation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking for it? Okay. Now, anybody want to speak against that? Hearing none, then we'll move to the next one.
All right, Mayor and Council. This is the portion, ordinance 743 is for the rezoning of the parcels at 4651 Hog Mountain Road, 4665 Hog Mountain Road. And again, my staff report went into much more detail than what this presentation is, and so I hope everybody had a chance to read that, including the public. So the parcels, subject parcels are AR1 residential and R1 in Hall County, and we are the applicant is seeking to rezone the city of Flowery Branch as a single-family townhome zoning district. The applicant is requesting concurrent variances, a reduction to the front porch dimension in section 12.7, and the elimination of required cul-de-sac turnarounds from section 10.2.2 and table 10.1. So we've gone through these slides during the annexation portions, so we know what the zoning nearby is, and we know what the future land use development holds at this site, similar activity center and mixed use. So this is the site plan provided. So we have attached townhomes, no more than 6 units per any one building. We have proposed open spaces throughout the development. They do have stream buffers and towards the back of the property to the east. I think all of and the applicant can go over more details of architectural treatments, but all of the rear loaded are facing Hog Mountain Road. So the Hog Mountain Road will have the front doors facing Hog Mountain Road. The applicant submitted conceptual renderings of the proposed townhouses, and at this time, it's not expected that they would have detailed floor plans, but without that detailed floor plans, some of the things that are required in my Article 40 design review just can't be done at this time, but it will be prior to the issuance of a building permit, should we get to that point. And the elevations they showed me, and I think they're going to have better presentation materials than I had at the time, but what I had are these two renderings showing front entries, possibly rear entries. I just don't know. I didn't see the floor plans, but I am sure the applicant is ready to present more detail on the architecturals. Traffic impacts. There was not a traffic impact required nor provided as part of the application submittal. The site plan indicates a single entrance off of Hog Mountain Road. I did have our city engineer take a look at this and recommended traffic improvements as listed under the conditions of approval. Density calculations, the applicant provided calculations for gross density on the submitted site data table. Net density calculations must be provided by our code, Article 2, Section 2.2. I think I placed a condition of zoning of that. So staff does recommend approval of the rezoning conditions. And again, it's tough for staff to approve variances that are peculiar, that when they don't demonstrate a hardship that's peculiar to the property, which is beyond the control of the applicant. However, the variance requests are placed on the conditions of approval under condition 7B and 7C for council's consideration. These were numerically ordered on my staff report, and my limited ability for PowerPoint presentation technology kind of helped. So if we'll just run through these. I don't have the numbers, but I do know that if we want to look at 7B and 7C are the two variances that are requested. So the total number of townhomes shall not exceed 116. Density that we just talked about is going to be net density, and 6 units per acre is the max. The final site grading stormwater utility plans shall be in substantial conformity with the rezoning concept plan, including all delineated amenities, open spaces, and public gatherings. Limited grading into the 75-foot impervious approved by the Community Development Director as Code Section 27.6 states. Exterior elevation shall comply with design requirements in Article 12. Where brick veneer is shown, only authentic brick or natural stone shall be utilized. All facades shall be approved through the design review process, Article 40, and meet requirements of Article 10 and Article 12. The streets themselves, The internal streets and sidewalks shall be public to the city design standards and be dedicated at the conclusion of the final plat. Stormwater management system shall remain private and be maintained by the HOA's expense. An overall signage plan shall be provided and a landscape plan showing the pathways, treatments, the open space, and trails, and any of the other amenities in the landscape lighting plan. Transportation, the developer will implement a transportation improvement plan to address impacts on Hog Mountain Road. A right deceleration lane designed per GDOT standards. And the city engineer talked about the tapers that were required for a 45 mile an hour street. Left turn lane into the site, GDOT standards, no cost to the city. Dedication of all necessary right-of-way for these improvements conveyed by the developer at no cost to Flowery Branch, and relocation of any utilities currently beneath the proposed decel lane at the developer's expense. Unless otherwise stated in this paragraph below, approval of this rezoning does not grant any variances from local, state, or federal standards. Any such request must be submitted through the formal variance process to the appropriate jurisdiction. And the two variances are these is 7B and 7C to permit reduction to the front porch depth from 6 foot to 4 foot and to allow the termination of the streets without a cul-de-sac. And the public utilities, the site topographic restraints indicate the sanitary sewer will require lift stations or lift station, depending on the engineering design. The engineer of record must closely work with the Public Works Department throughout the design process. All pump station plans must comply with Chapter 50, Article 2, Division 2, Subdivision 7, as well as any additional criteria that the Director of Public Utilities will need. And with that, that concludes my presentation of the rezoning. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
You said right now, submitted with gross density, not net density.
It was the site plan shows gross density, not net density. Yeah, it just has to be revised. Yep.
How wide are they? I didn't ask before with townhomes.
What's that, Mayor? I'm sorry.
How wide are they?
These are, yeah, that's a good point. I probably should have put that in the presentation. 24 foots for the rear loader, 26 foots for the front loads.
24 and 26?
24, 26, yes, sir. It complies with the townhome, the RTH.
Current conceptual townhomes in the front, though, right now are showing 24, right?
That's correct. Those along Hog Mountain, and the rest are the, unless I'm wrong, and the applicant, feel free to correct me. Okay. 26 front loaded, 24 rear loaded. Yeah.
But the conceptuals here, as far as the front loaded, that's showing in the pictures, those depict a 24 or 26? 26. Those are 26.
On the their main concept plan, which I attached to the agenda, they have typical lot details on those as well. It's hard to read it on these PowerPoint presentations.
The reason I ask that is just I'm looking, standard size garage, two-car garage there, and then you have the kind of the cavernous type of entry into the front door there. And it looks like what you would see on a 24-foot. As opposed to 20, usually the 26, unless there's something that I'm missing on that. It just looks like that's a 24-foot product on the front load.
It would be reasonable to believe that the applicant did provide their own PowerPoint presentation, Councilman, and I think there's going to be more detail of the architectural treatments and the floor plans. Anything else?
Is somebody here representing the developer there, back there?
Not me.
No, the guy back there. I think he might be able to answer some of those
That's right.
questions.
We're going to open it up
more
to.
about the reason why, and I know it's for the applicant. I would like to know more why we got to go, or why they feel like they got to go from the 6 foot depth on the porches to the 4 foot.
That's definitely their answer.
also the dead-end streets as opposed to the cul-de-sacs.
Sure. Okay. Chris, did you have something? No? Okay.
So you said it was based on gross density. On the net density, would that affect any of the numbers, or is it just a correction of?
I don't know how it would affect the numbers. I don't have the ability to measure up those areas. I don't have CAD, so their engineer of record will have to measure that up and do the recalculation to see how net density works.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else want to speak for that and answer questions?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council, good evening. Shane Lanham with Mahaffey, Pickens, Tucker, 1550 North Brown Road, Suite 125 in Lawrenceville. Again, here on behalf of the applicant to present our requests for rezoning of the subject property and concurrent variances. We do have a PowerPoint. Is there a way, can council see it, or is it up on the screen here? Is there a way to do that? Oh, I can just start clicking and it'll, apologies, I'm getting acclimated here. Maybe it looks like it's on. Okay. There we go. Thank you. The applicant for the applications that were submitted were Rochester DCCM. The developer is High Point Development. As we've discussed, the subject property are two parcels on the east side of Hog Mountain Road, just north of its intersection with Spout Springs Road, a.k.a. Phil Necro. Total of approximately 19.4 acres. That's currently in unincorporated Hall County zoned AR1 and R1. These are just some exhibits showing the location of the property and then identifying its boundaries on an aerial. So just a little bit of background. We initially submitted an application under that TND requirement, but after consultation with staff, we amended our applications after the adoption of that SFRTH ordinance amendment, text amendment to the zoning ordinance, and are seeking that SFRTH. That allows a lower maximum density down to 6 units an acre maximum from 6.5. And so just wanted to point that out, that we have amended our application, are seeking that SFRTH. Also will note, here's a summary of the requests that we have. So we have the annexation, we have the rezoning. We initially had 2 variances, including that porch variance, and then also this relief from the cul-de-sac requirement. We are happy to abandon that porch variance, and if it's, the city prefers that code requirement remain in place, we're happy to, we think we can solve for the hardships that we identified, and so we're happy to discharge that variance request and proceed only with the one relative to the cul-de-sac street configuration. So here's the site plan as was discussed previously. Single-family attached townhome community. We've got 116 total units showed here. As was identified with that remeasuring of that net acreage to come to that net density maximum, we're likely going to lose some lots. We think probably about 110 we think where we'll get, but we've just got some final calculations to arrive there. But as set forth in the zoning conditions, the maximum would be 116, but we anticipate that dropping to 110 or so once those final measurements are taken. Single access point off of Hog Mountain Road. You see we've got a deceleration lane designed here on the site plan. The topography of the site falls off significantly from Hog Mountain Road. It drops, I think, 160 feet or something like that. So the visibility is somewhat limited. The property is rectangular in shape. It's pretty deep. So motorists driving by on Hog Mountain Road would have limited visibility into the site, but we thought it was appropriate here and a good design idea to have rear-loaded homes fronting Hog Mountain Road. It's a little bit more sort of neighborhood type of feel with the front doors facing the road. With those external setbacks and the depth of those lots, those units can, have that. We think that's good aesthetics to have that rear-loaded from the road, but still set back a good enough distance where people feel comfortable in their own home and don't feel like they're right on top of the road. So that's one aspect of the design that we liked here and we're happy to take advantage of. We'll also point out, I know this was mentioned in staff's presentation, but do have some amenities provided for residents here. So in addition to the mail kiosk, we have Pocket Park towards the front of the site, a dog park, and then a nature trail down in the rear of the site as well for the use and enjoyment of residents. Here are some examples of those proposed homes. You made a great point about these looking like maybe less than 26 feet wide on some of those front entries. We'll double check those plan widths with our builder partner, which right now the builder partner that my client has identified is Chafin Communities, which is a local company. I think their office is just right down the road in Beaufort, but they've got national backing and experience and reputation for constructing high-quality homes. But these are representative of the architectural style and building materials of the homes that we would propose for the subject property and its development. Here's some additional renderings and photographs of that type of unit, showing opportunities for different color schemes and architectural features on the front, window placement, treatments above the garage. These are all 2-car garage units, but we think that these are attractive homes that are compatible with the architectural style of surrounding properties. These are some just interior renderings, just trying to depict the quality of the homes that we are planning here for the property. It's hard to predict the future, and I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but our underwriting, we anticipate the homes in the community starting in the low to mid 4s for townhomes based on our market study. So we're very bullish on the area, and the interior features and architectural design reflect that as well. So those are just some examples there. Would submit to council that the proposed rezoning is compatible with the policies of Flowery Branch's comprehensive plan. So we're not designated in Flowery Branch's comprehensive plan because we're in unincorporated Hall County, but we are adjacent to land that does have a designation, and that's the blue on this map is activity center retail, which encourages sort of higher intensity. I think most people would agree commercial uses are considered higher intensity than residential. Adjacent to us to the west, southwest, and then also nearby the pink on the map, that's that mixed-use neighborhood. That's that R3 zone property just to our north. So would submit that the proposed development is compatible with the land uses that are encouraged by the comprehensive plan for property that's adjacent to and located in close proximity to the property. I'll just point out the Flowery Branch, the future land use plan, it reflects the fact that Hog Mountain Road at Spout Springs and 985, that's an activity node. And there, you can see that with large commercial development there. One other thing that we'd submit is that the proposed development and rezoning is an appropriate transition of land uses as you move away from that more intense activity center. So 985 interchange, large commercial center, power center with Home Depot and other out parcels. We transition from that. There's more HB, even including adjacent to the property. And then that HB, that commercial zoning classification, would step down to the SFRTH, and then moving east, it would step down in intensity again to single-family detached on larger lots in unincorporated Hall County. So that transition of land uses we feel like provides further justification for approval of the rezoning. This is just an excerpt from the zoning map just to underscore that same point. We're adjacent to land in the city that's already zoned HB, which accommodates relatively intense commercial uses. Also, we are aware of Hall County's objection to the annexation. Without going into too much detail, we look forward to the opportunity to try to work with Hall County to address their concerns. We do feel like the objection is not valid and doesn't meet the criteria laid out in state code for what those annexation objections, the boundaries they have to stay within. But moving on, we would also submit that the proposed development is compatible with Hall County's comprehensive plan. For what it's worth, we're designated as within this business node and corridors character area, which is a primarily retail commercial district, but it also accommodates medium and high density residential. And we've got it highlighted here, up to 16 units an acre, including multifamily. And so we feel like the proposed townhome development at a relatively low density of 6 units an acre net density, so even less than 6 on the gross, since we have some of that stream buffer area, is certainly compatible with even the Hall County's future land use plan. And you can see here, I've got at the bottom of this, the appropriate zoning districts. So the comp plan specifically says these are appropriate zoning districts. RX and RMF are indicated as limited. That's just because that character area is primarily commercial, but accommodates medium to high density residential uses in certain places. And we think sort of on the fringe of higher intensity commercial nodes is such a place. So for what it's worth, we submit that for your consideration as well. In summary, we submit that the proposed development is compatible with existing zoning classifications and land use in the city of Flowery Branch. We submit that it's actually even compatible with the comprehensive plan policies in Hall County. This is a high-quality, single-family attached residential townhome development. These are planned as fee simple, owner-occupied townhomes. This is not planned as a rental community, and are excited about the future for this property, and we respectfully request your approval. I'll conclude there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, anyone want to speak against that? No. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on.
I've got a couple questions. We'll see if you want to speak it. With this development, right in our comprehensive plan, we've got a note in there that 15% maximum for townhomes in our city, 10% with multifamily, and we're right up against that 15%, right up against it. So with that, with an additional 100 plus townhomes, it would send us over that 15%. So I guess my question to you guys is, what about this development makes this a premier townhome development that would be brought into the city and bring additional value to the area around it? Because, you know, I'm looking at some of the renderings and what I'm seeing, very similar to the townhomes that we have currently in the city. So I guess what is going to bring that up? What about your project is going to bring that up? Because again, you know, our comprehensive plan is 15% townhomes. So it does seem right up against that. Just doing the numbers, I mean, we'd have to add another almost 500 detached homes, 400 to 500 detached homes to balance it back out, to get that townhome number back down.
Yes, sir. No, great question. I think what I'd say as sort of a response to that is we do think, you know, we understand the policy of the comprehensive plan. Those are well reasoned and adopted for a reason after a lot of consideration by the city. We do think it's appropriate to have those broad policy goals in mind, but also sort of consider the specific instances, specific properties, their context, how they relate to adjacent property. And so we would submit just broadly the proposed development at 116 units right now still falls within that spirit and intent of the comprehensive plan, even if you did bump above that 15%. And I think that's worth considering based on some of the other larger policy goals that I think we can accomplish, which are transition of land uses. So land use is a lot about transitions. You know, if a jurisdiction, including a city such as Flowery Branch, is going to have industrial and low-density single-family residential, you know, a lot of land planning is, well, how do the transitions look in between? And so we would submit that the transition from higher-intensity commercial uses, stepping down to townhomes, and then stepping down to single-family detached is appropriate and is also in line with that broader policy goal. And just a quick note there, there's also a way to have that transition on the property itself, because we've got that stream at the bottom of the hill at the rear of the site, which has, you know, the 25-foot state buffers, 50-foot and local buffer, and then 75-foot impervious setback. And a large portion of that stream, you know, those stream buffers and impervious setbacks, we have both sides of the stream are on our property. So significant buffering at the rear of our site, providing additional separation from that unit. So enough dancing around the question to get to the meat of it. We would submit that, you know, the high quality of these units, the architectural design, the fact that we have a builder partner, Chafin Communities, who I regard very highly as far as builders that are active in, call it North Metro Atlanta region and metropolitan Gainesville, and specifically here in Flowery Branch. You know, that group is very active. We are excited about partnering with them specifically because we know they're a reputable firm that they can deliver what local governments are seeking. So those high quality features, those high quality construction standards leading to those high price points, we think do provide benefit to the city. As I mentioned, we are anticipating those sales would start in the low to mid 400s, and it would also provide you know, a housing type that is in high demand, but that would also provide, you know, it's a complement to the existing commercial and the future commercial. So what happens is those residential uses, if a city is going to have, you know, apartments and townhomes, a lot of these comprehensive plans in Flowery Branches is the same. They encourage those uses closer to activity nodes. And we would submit to council that we are really right in one of those big activity nodes at the interchange, Spout Springs, Phil Negro, right there and at Hog Mountain. And so that warrants that medium density residential because it's complementary to that commercial. And it you know, you hear it all the time, you know, rooftops bring retail. You know, those commercial developers, they're looking for, I hear it said, not to be flippant, the body heat. You know, we want people that are close by that can get to us very easily. And so we think, in addition to providing the housing, complementing those commercial uses, those bring benefits to the city as well. I hope that was responsive to your question. Yes, sir.
Tell me about the dead end streets. Why are y'all feeling that's necessary?
Yes, sir. So 2 points there, sort of 2 categories of reasoning there. One, I'll start with kind of a practical aspect, and we understand that variances are not in the code just to make people's lives easier. Those are to address hardship. But to start on the practical side, call it hammerhead turnarounds. That's how I've heard them called. In a townhome community, those provide convenient and easy access to those townhome units. Part of that is because of the buildings. You know, with a single-family home on a cul-de-sac, it's easier for those lots to front off the cul-de-sac. They're pie-shaped. They back off. They're detached homes, so they're spread out further. It's a different situation when you have the townhomes and you have much longer buildings. So just the physical size of those townhome buildings, having multiple units, makes those cul-de-sacs a little unwieldy in the design. We, however, have reached out to the fire marshal, Hall County Fire Marshal, to confirm that hammerhead design meets their, you know, access and safety requirements for turnarounds. We comply with those requirements. It's my understanding that these would meet the requirements of, you know, approved turnaround under the fire code, so that there is good access for emergency vehicles or even larger vehicles to access the site. But we also have those hammerhead turnarounds sort of at the edges, at the corners, right? There's a loop inside. So school buses, you know, fire trucks, garbage trucks, they would come in and they would make that loop primarily. Those hammerhead turnarounds would really just be turnarounds for specific instances. But relative to the hardship, as I mentioned, there's significant topo on the site. And we go, I think it's about 165 feet or more of fall from Hog Mountain Road down to the creek bed in the rear of the property. And then with additional right-of-way dedications for left turn lanes, decel lanes, that's going to sort of shrink, right? So if we fall 165 feet over 1,000, I'm making that number up, that's going to shrink even more. So it's going to get even steeper. And so the cul-de-sacs obviously take up much more land area than that hammerhead turnaround. And so in addition to that, when you've got the grade, you have to grade a much wider area to accommodate that cul-de-sac, whereas the hammerhead turnaround is just the width, you know, back a curb, plus the sidewalks that you've got. You're actually able to work with the grade to accomplish that. And additionally, I'll mention this as well. We've been hearing just sort of in land planning and design things that I try to read. And I promise I'm no expert. I'm not an engineer. But we've seen codes try to encourage less impervious surface area in developments. And I think especially where sites have topographical challenges like this one, and we've got a stream at the rear of the property, doing little things to try to reduce the impervious surface area do provide some benefit. We just have less stormwater, and we have, you know, robust and modern stormwater facilities, but there is this push to reduce that impervious surface area, and the hammerhead turnarounds help us do that as well.
And with the challenges of this particular parcel, the two parcels, there is no ability from y'all's vantage point that you could put single family detached product on this in combination with townhomes.
No, I don't know. I'll look to my client. I don't know that we've studied that in detail. You know, the subject property has, not to just keep harping on the physical challenges, but they're certainly there, right? And so we're not saying that a difficult property entitles us to higher density, but when it complies with, you know, comprehensive plan policies and would submit that it's appropriate given the context of the property, this zoning classification, it does yield, you know, more units than a single family zoning classification would. And part of that is just, frankly, there are fixed development costs, you know, that you would have to incur in the development of this property, and having more units to spread those costs around makes that more feasible. It's less of a burden on future HOAs, depending on how those are capitalized and things like that. So we'd be happy to study that in more detail, but at this point, what we're requesting respectfully is that SFRTH. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak against this development? Hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and we'll go to the next one. Consider ordinance 744.
Council, my understanding is this application has been withdrawn.
Thank you. Next is the public hearing for our 2026 budget.
Good evening. There's actually a correction. We felt like that Chris had spoken enough, and I'm going to talk about the next 5 annexation and rezoning cases. So, just kidding. I don't know anything about that, so I'm going to stay in my lane tonight. So tonight I have before you the required public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 26 budget. Kind of getting started, I just want to kind of talk about this because we don't talk about it a whole lot, but I like to remind everyone about the city's vision, mission, and priorities. The city's vision is Flowery Branch will be a desirable, charming destination that is caring and a safe community filled with opportunity and a vibrant quality of life. The mission, the City of Flowery Branch seeks to deliver exemplary services and have sustainable growth while maintaining the charming feel of our city. And our key priorities are public safety, infrastructure improvements, internal controls, financial stability, and economic development. Kind of just to cover some of the opportunities we've seen over this past year and continues on is we continue to see growth in the population of the city, which places stress on the infrastructure. Our health insurance and benefit costs continue to rise. The workload of our employees continue to rise at a faster than sustainable pace. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, House Bill 581 and House Bill 92 changes. I'll talk about that at a later date during a resolution that you'll see tonight. And then just increasing cost and materials. So with that being said, this proposed budget seeks to address many of the citywide opportunities while maintaining a healthy workforce, keeping benefit costs manageable, keeping pace with growth, providing the services level expected while meeting the city's mission, vision, and goals. Some of the highlights we see here, and I already noticed the typo, so I apologize for that. As you know, we presented this budget to you, the proposed budget, last meeting, and we've heard some feedback from you, and we've made some changes, so I'll cover those changes since then as well. So far, in terms of the highlights, health insurance and benefits costs are up about 32.4%, but we tried to maintain the employees' cost the same. In this budget is a proposed 3% cost of living adjustment and a 3% merit based on the employee's annual review, which is assessed at their annual hire date. And then this is where the typo is. It says proposed 7 new positions, but that was some of the changes. So there's actually 5 positions here, but only 4 new positions. One being the proposed purchasing coordinator. One that is not new, but a reclass of an existing position is we're requesting a reclass of a public works manager position to a maintenance worker position. A proposed new position of property and evidence custodian, a civil engineer, and a building inspector. So changes from since the presentation 2 weeks ago. In the revenue categories, we increased the local option sales tax budget up $150,000 to $2.4 million. We removed the CASA agency allocation request of $10,000. We removed 3 positions, one being the administrative assistant, approximately about $72,000 reduction in the budget. One maintenance worker, which was about a $74,000 reduction. Those are salaries and benefits, not just their salary. And then the deputy police chief position of approximately $120,000 of salaries and benefits. So what did that affect in the budget? It reduced the indirect cost allocation revenue. So those are positions that kind of serve dual roles, and we allocate some of that funding to the water and sewer, and they pay the general fund back for those services. It reduced the budgeted fund balance projected use by $413,000. Total reduction in budget is $285,000. So at the presentation we gave 2 weeks ago, it was not a lot of detail, so I'm going to go into detail, a little bit more detail about each department and the revenue classes for the general fund and the other funds as well. So I know this slide is hard to see in terms of the numbers there, but some of the highlights: total revenue budget up 38.4% from fiscal year 25 amended budget, and 29.73% from the fiscal year 24 actuals. A large part of that is the use of fund balance for the capital request. Total operating budget without the capital transfer is up 12.58% over fiscal year 25, and projected down 4.93% from fiscal year 24 actual. And then property tax is only projected up 3%. That's because we don't have the digest yet, and that's related to the House Bill 581 and House Bill 92 changes, and we'll get into that during another presentation. In terms of the general fund expenditures as a total, or as a whole, total expenditure budget up 38.4% over amended 25 budget, and 46.04% over fiscal year 24 actuals. Large part of that is capital transfers, and then moving some expenses out of a fund into the department, which we'll cover in a few slides. Total expenditure budget without the capital transfer is up 18.11% over fiscal year 25, and projected up 44.55% over 24 actuals. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions as we go through this, because it's a lot of information.
We've had meetings on this. there's a lot of numbers here, probably can't keep up, but we've had meetings on this, phone calls, talking, so it's not as complicated almost as it seems. Go ahead.
Yeah, and also I failed to mention, we did, at our last presentation, we did put the proposed budget out on the website, and it has been updated for these new numbers. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's out there for you to review on the city's website under the finance page. Moving on to the departments in the general fund, the first category here is the mayor and city council budget. Total budget up is 30.2%, and primarily that's due to the per diem increase that was approved a few months ago, I believe.
No.
Yeah. Got to go to meetings to get that. City clerk budget is up 2.9%, which is about just under $6,000, and that's primarily due to the local election that'll take place in a few months. City manager's budget up 10.3%, or in terms of numbers, just over $25,000 from the 25 budget. Primarily, cause of increases are COLA and merit, and then just increased cost in supplies and services. Moving on to the general administration and financial services budget. Total budget up just a hair under 50% for $451,632 over the 25 budget. Seems like a lot, but one of the key factors here is we're moving IT services expenses that we outsource to this budget out of all the departmental budgets, just to make it more efficient in coding that piece of it. So in total, this is up $54,000 for that specific expense due to we need additional resources here, and so we've adjusted that contract to reflect that. And then also in this budget, there is a request for a purchasing coordinator. You see the expense there of a total of about $100,000 for salaries and benefits. Next is the Human Resources Department, which wins the award for the highest increase for the year of 900% at $220,000. Main reason here is we historically had that salary for those employees in that department in the Employee Benefits Fund, and our auditors did not like that, so we are moving it into the HR department. So that's one cost that's increasing that amount, but it's also, we have a $50,000 classification and compensation study budgeted in this department. So it's not an overall expense increase, it's just moving the expenses to a different department. Moving on to risk management department, this is where we pay for our general insurance, general liability insurance, workers' comp, things like that. This is projected up 22.6%, at $70,000. That's for property and liability insurance going up $70,000. Public lands and buildings projected up 24.3%, or about just under $70,000. This is moving up because of communication budget up about $20,000. Reason for that is we have new devices, requires self-service, but it makes their processes more efficient, almost seamless. And then there's some other requirements at some intersections we need to take on. Electricity up $10,000, and then they're requesting replacement of 3 mowers for a total of $40,000. The street administration department, total budget up 5.1%, or $67,000, just under $68,000. Primarily increases here are $15,000 for cost of supplies and materials going up, additional manhole repairs, and then the COLA and merit increases. Municipal court, total budget up 2.4% at $6,879, primarily due to the COLA merit. I will take note that some of the other categories went down, so Moving on to the police department. Total budget up 12.5% or $361,000. These are primarily due to the COLA merit raises, but also the additional request for a position of the property and evidence custodian. Moving on to planning and community development department, this is a total of 20.6% or $230,000. Primary increases here for planning software, increased cost for the new positions, and then the addition of increased costs associated with the new positions, and then the cost for the actual positions requested. Salary and benefit costs, excuse me. The Department of Fund, total budget down 1.4%. Just a hair under $10,000. And then finally, for the general fund department's agency allocation, there is no change this year in this budget. Any questions about the general fund departments?
The property and evidence custodian is also a CSI position too, right? And that also, wasn't that also going to be a
Yes,
Crime
sir.
scene investigator.
CSI, yeah, crime scene investigator.
Yes, sir, that was the plan. Yes, sir.
Which
Amen.
will allow us to be able to do a lot of our own stuff, because right now, if you've got any big-time crimes, that Georgia Bureau of Investigation comes in, right?
That is right. And we've had instances where the GBI was busy, and so we didn't have them to come and do our crime scene investigations. And so this would allow us to have our own crime scene investigator. Yes, sir.
And that would equip them with a vehicle with the proper supplies that they need to do all those kinds of things. So they would.
Yes, sir.
Matt, real quick on the healthcare costs. Are other local cities seeing that type of increase? I mean, 32% and whatever. I mean, I'm not hearing that, I guess, in the news or other cities. I haven't seen anything of a number that large. So I'm just, numbers are more like, 10% this year or something. So I'm just curious as to.
So I'll just say this: so when you're comparing last year's budget to this year's budget, you have to remember that our rate increases are typically happen at the mid-year. So last year we budgeted for the known expenses that happened in the half of the year prior. So you're kind of seeing a combination of this year's increase, which was 20%, plus what happened mid-year of fiscal year 25. In terms of other cities, all I can tell you is what was told to us when they came in with the rate increases, especially on property liability, but also health insurance. Most people are seeing about a 20% increase, but a lot of that is dependent on what type of claims you've had, et cetera. So it's hard to compare other cities to ours because they may have different claims. Obviously, some with more employees that have more claims, they're going to see a different cost increase as opposed to us with a smaller number of employees. So that's all that we are aware of.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And we'll see some of those more specific numbers when we get to the Employee Benefits Fund.
Matt, quick questions, couple questions on the two positions for city engineer and what was the other? Building inspector. We currently are contracting those services out, correct?
That's correct.
And net, the budget reflects net of those not paying for the contracts and then the net of their salaries and compensation as well?
I don't think it does this fiscal year because you have to keep in mind, to hire positions like that, it typically takes 3 to 6 months, but to find the right person.
Depending on the speed of
right.
positions.
Yeah, so we felt like we probably won't realize a real savings in this year. So you'll probably start seeing that reflected in the next fiscal year 27. Right.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Moving on to compensated assets fund, this is the fund where, as our fabulous police department are doing their jobs and they seize assets from the state, seize assets that can go into this fund and be used for specific items. So this budget reflects, I think in your summary it says 35,000. On here it's 30,000. We went back and reviewed the numbers to see what was available currently, and we projected it to be around $30,000. So that's why you see this. This does not reflect any seizures that we may take in during the fiscal year. So this is how we budget for that fund. So it's in total up about 15,000 based on what's available today, or we project at the end of this fiscal year. It's already been seized. Tax allocation district. This is relatively flat. A lot of this is driven by when we receive the tax digest, which we don't have yet. So we feel like it will be at least what we received this year. So we kept it flat. But this will be adjusted once we have the tax digest. Moving on to the hotel motel tax fund, total budget up about 18.9% or $35,000. That's just based on historical trends, what we received this year so far, and project to receive throughout the end of the year. Moving on to the water and sewer fund, total budget up 21.13% or just over $1 million, and this is primarily due to anticipated growth of the developments that we know have been approved and reflecting some more of the interest growth that we've seen over the last couple of years. In terms of expenses, I'll just hit each division within the water sewer fund. The first one is general administration division. It projected up 30.21%, and this is due to some costs for I&I testing and increased cost of services. Wastewater division projected up 2.64% due to increased repairs and maintenance and chemicals and electricity cost. The lift station division up 11.10% due to repairs and maintenance cost and flow diversion to Gainesville. Keep in mind that is budgeted as almost a worst case scenario, but we only use that as needed. Water division up 50.76% due primarily to COLA increases, training cost. The big one there is the meter supplies, and that's budgeted based on anticipated growth, and that's where those supplies are purchased. And so that's why that's up a lot. And then finally, water supply division up 3%, just due to increased chemical cost. And then finally, in terms of the budgeted numbers, this is the employee benefits fund. This is the fund where we account for all the benefits that we provide. And you can see they're up 25.42%. Health insurance cost up 43.55%. Keep in mind that is based on the prior year budget, and we just discussed how those rate changes affect some of this. And pension cost up 31.07%. Also noted, which we talked about in the winter of the largest increase, the HR department, we removed those salaries out of this budget, so that's where those expenses came from. Any questions in terms of any of the numbers we've talked about so far?
Matt, you've got several positions already that are paid for through both the general budget and the enterprise fund, right?
Correct.
These new positions, will some of these new positions also split? So I'm just saying, the city engineer obviously is going to have to be doing.
Yeah, the city engineer, we budgeted 80% planning and 20% water sewer. Purchasing coordinator probably would be about 50-50. And then the maintenance worker is also in there, and I forget the percentages off the top of my head. But yes, those three positions would be split between us and the water and sewer fund.
And that doesn't put a strain on the water and sewer fund to add those?
No. Actually, when we removed the other proposed maintenance worker, it reduced their allocation a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, I think most of our allocations are around 50-50, 70-30, except for our utility billing clerk. Her salary is in our budget, but it's 100% funded by water and sewer. Yeah. Moving on to the authorized position, we've discussed these throughout the presentation, but here's just another slide to kind of show those positions and then how that looks in a graph there. So we'd be projected to move from 68 authorized employees to 72. Also a part of this approval of the budget in a couple of weeks is the master fee schedule, which we started doing a couple of years ago. And there were some recommended changes to our fees. And so you had I think you have a spreadsheet of those in your on your slides there, but these are just a summary of the changes. The addition of a solicitor's permit of $100. We understand that this has been in place, it just wasn't in the list, so we're adding that list on the list here. We're also recommending a depot rental of a half a day reduced by $50 to $350, and then the full day reduced by $50 to $600. Under the utility billing account services fee is increased by 22 cents to $2.79. Utility billing meter box cost increased by 51 cents to $19.76. Utility billing meter lid cost increased $2.26 to $27.76. Those are based on our cost, is how that's determined. And then the yard sale permit was reduced $20 to $5.
So if somebody's soliciting in Flowery Branch, then they've got to come and get a $100 permit? Is that
Correct.
So what does that look like? I mean, what would be somebody would solicit? I mean, Girl Scouts in front of Publix?
I don't know about Girl Scouts, but typically like, Xfinity or, some of those type things.
Sales was walking through a neighborhood in Flowery Branch, then they're expected to have a solicitor's permit, even if the community doesn't have signs posted saying no solicitation.
Yeah.
No soliciting. That's just. Okay. Very good.
This is only for places that don't have signs that says no soliciting. So the final slide here is the public hearing dates for the millage, to set the millage rate. I know we talked briefly a little about House Bill 581 and House Bill 92. As a result of that, it's caused a lot of changes in the tax assessor's office, and they're having to do some software updates. So we have not received the digest yet because they're still testing those software updates. Historically, we do this adoption at the same time as we do the budget, but since we do not have the digest, we cannot do that this year. So here are the proposed hearings for the adoption of the millage rate. And these are tentative schedules because I think we have a meeting tomorrow on where they're at in terms of getting the digest to us. So it's somewhat fluid still. This is assuming we keep the millage rate at 3.264, and that constitute a tax increase. If we choose to roll it back, then this schedule will change to 2 hearings or 1 hearing instead of 3. And those are the tentative dates, unless we find news that we're not going to be able to meet those deadlines. Any other questions?
I do have one more.
Yep.
What's going to be the amount of money in reserves above the 4.5-month reserve emergency fund? What's that number going to look like?
Oh, Lord, you asked me that, and that's the only document I don't have. I could get that to you.
Okay.
I think the last time I looked, it was a little over a million, 1.2 million, something like that. But I'll confirm that and get it to you while you're in executive session.
We're using a lot of that reserve. We're using a
Yeah.
lot of that reserve, especially with the roundabout at Lights Ferry, the additional costs there.
Yeah, I do know. I think the original budget that we presented to you was about $4.5 million use of surplus, and that's dropped down to 4.1. So we did recapture about $500,000 there, but I'll get that number to you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
So we're ready to go to the voting section. What are we having?
Yeah, right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't anybody signed up for. Is there anybody else want to speak for the budget? Anybody want to speak against the budget? Okay, moving on. We'll go down to the work session. First.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I am going to be presenting to award the contract for our benefits consulting and brokerage services. We issued an RFP February 19th. Bids were due by March 27th, and we received 10 bids. Our committee consisted of myself with the city manager, finance director, city clerk, and our support services captain. This is a list of the 10 companies that submitted bids to us. Included was NFP, who is our current broker. We are recommending Edgewood Partners Insurance Center, also called Epic. We do have a representative here, Jim Baker, tonight, if you happen to have any questions for him. Their local office has been in business for over 50 years. They have been awarded the top 15 insurance broker nationally. Several Georgia local governments are their clients, and our team that will be assigned to us is located in Duluth. They also participate regularly with GGFOA, GLGPA, GCCA, and SHRM, as well as many others. And they also won an award for Innovative Wellness Program implemented in Lowndes County. I hope I said that right. So here's just a few things they'll be able to help us with. Regular reporting to review our claims versus our premiums, health improvement and wellness for our employees. They will provide an employee self-service model along with extensive training to our staff and to myself. Automated integration with our carrier, so when we have new hires or terminations or benefit changes, that will be able to be entered into one system and automatically feed over to our carrier, so there's no lapse in any changes. Regular account reconciliation. Their assigned team to us has a very small number of clients. Each one of them have roughly 8 to 10, and they have extensive experience with other local governments. So staff recommends awarding contract for RFP 25-007, benefits consulting and brokerage services to Epic Insurance Brokers and Consultants. Any questions for me or Jim?
excuse me, absolutely. So what our team focuses first on is doing diligence in terms of benchmarking, understanding what other cities and counties are offering in terms of plan designs, and comparing your design with those. I look at it as retention of your current staff, also recruiting new staff to join your team. So how do you position your health benefits or your health and welfare strategy proactively? So we look at that. We also look at what your contribution costs are. How much does it cost an employee to participate in that plan? And we measure that across the spectrum. So we use our own client database, but we also tap into some of those affiliations where we can access their data as well to give you that robust look. From that point, we then identify what the goals are of the design itself, cost avoidance levers that we can bring. Then we go to market. For sure, we talk to all the different insurance companies in order to identify who's going to provide the best cost with the least amount of disruption, so network access, pharmacy changes, things of that nature. So it is a comprehensive look. It's not done once a year, it's done throughout the year. So we talked about sharing data and reports, helping you understand what's driving your costs throughout the year, trying to help you avoid maybe a surprise that you've had in the past, so that you're all informed throughout the time. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you all.
Governmental agreement for SPLOST 9.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hall County has sent us this intergovernmental agreement, and they have sent it to all 9 municipalities within the county. The intergovernmental agreement is for SPLOST 9 that will be on the referendum in November. The city of Flowery Branch is expected, if SPLOST 9 passes, the amount for the entire county is $440 million. And of that amount, the city of Flowery Branch would get $14.5 million, and this is the breakout of how the city would use those dollars. Are there any questions about the intergovernmental agreement?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And next is the resolution. Consider the resolution 25-005.
Good evening again. So just a few minutes ago, we talked about House Bill 581 and House Bill 92, and some of those changes that are affecting us in terms of the tax digest. A part of House Bill 581 was, I think, adopted in 2024, and then House Bill 92 was just adopted and made effective April 1st, 2025. With those changes, there's been a lot of analysis from Georgia Municipal Association and ACCG, and their recommendation to cities and counties is that the cities and counties ratify an estimated rollback rate. I won't get into the weeds of why that's recommended or what it could cause if the way we do it. General consensus among the cities is that we estimate that they adopt or ratify the millage rate at what it was in the current past year. That'll just, even if we roll it back, we won't have to make any changes. For some reason, we estimate it at a lower rate and we can't achieve what we need to and we have to raise it, then it creates some problems with the assessments and tax bills and things like that. So we are recommending that you set the estimated rollback rate at 3.264. This is not setting the millage rate, it's just setting an estimated rollback rate, which will affect the assessment value notices when they go out. We will still have the needed public hearings to establish the millage rate in August, tentatively scheduled, depending on when we get to digest. Do you have any questions for me on that? This is a new step required by House Bill 92.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, department reports. City manager report. City manager's report.
I have no report. Thank you.
City clerk's report.
I do have just a small little quick snippet to say. I had the privilege to represent our sweet city at the Georgia State Capitol last week with fellow city clerks from all over Georgia. And I got a couple of pictures I was going to show y'all. This is one. I think there was about 60 of us that showed up at the Capitol for a proclamation from the governor. And then he took a little selfie with us. Isn't that the cutest thing? So anyways, that is my report. I did enjoy it, though. It was good it's always good to network with fellow clerks.
Good.
I leaned in. I was all over Oakwood's back. Good times, you know. We're neighbors, so why not, right?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Department of Fun.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is really good to be back today. So, and my first statement is just because my budget is lowered a little bit doesn't mean the fun is going to stop. So just wanted to make that clear. It's going to continue right on through June. We have a very busy next couple of weeks. This Sunday is our next Music in the Branch, so come join us Sunday evening here at our beautiful amphitheater at 6:30 for Jonathan Ingram. And then everybody mark your calendar for the Nashville Yacht Club Band will be here Friday, the 13th of June, for our summer block party. We're going to have a big luau we'll have fire throwers and hula dancers and lots of food trucks and lots of fun stuff happening. Lilo and Stitch will be here, so it'll be a good time. So y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Council's report.
No report at this time.
Not tonight, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this is the first time I've been on council where a budget has been set where we're using significant amount of money from the general fund, which have been moved to the reserve fund, to do a really big project, and that is the roundabout out there. I know that in years past, whenever we've had big projects we've had to do, we've always had to rely on SPLOST. I know up here for the roundabout at Lights Ferry in Mitchell Street, I think it was Governor Deal's administration that gave us a pretty good sized grant that helped us to be able to do that. We had to take a loan for that, but we were able to get that done. And this is that was the first time that I've been here that we're using these general fund dollars, taxpayer dollars coming directly from the citizens here in Flowery Branch to do something that is very much needed as far as capital project. We're a big capital project. We have a big capital project here as far as our town size is concerned. So just wanted to mention that, and hopefully we can continue to rely on the general fund some to be able to do these big projects that have to be done in the city, not just rely on SPLOST and grants to get it done. Grants certainly help. Thank you a lot for all the work you've done with that, because those certainly help, because those offset the cost big time. So appreciate it.
Okay. Oh, go right ahead.
Sorry to keep you so long.
All right. Yeah. That's one of our guys that's not here tonight. So, all right, we're going to adjourn that and then go to the voting session, and we'll call it to order. There were nobody signed up for public comments. I do have another announcement before we start that before we start it tonight. All the voting, again, I think I mentioned that, we're going to do it a roll call. So our clerk can keep track of exactly how it's at. And we'll just start with post 1 and go all the way to the end. So okay. The first one is to consider the warrant contract to Epic for. Oh, oh, yeah. The
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? I'm not going to call roll on that. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll go to the, consider the second reading of ordinance 740 for adding new streets in Summit Lake subdivision.
Ordinance 740 is an ordinance to add streets to the personal transportation vehicle route plan via the petition process per Chapter 47, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 4, Personal Transportation Vehicles, to provide for severability, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for all other legal purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 740.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any further questions or discussion? Okay. Post 1.
Approve.
Post 2.
Approve.
Approve.
Okay. All right, next we go down to the awarding a contract to Epic for the business consulting and brokerage services.
I move to approve awarding the contract to Epic for benefits consulting and brokerage services.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Post 1.
Approve.
Post 2.
Approve.
Okay. Any opposed? No. Okay. Next is consider the intergovernmental agreement for SPLOST 9.
Make a motion to approve the intergovernment agreement for SPLOST 9 between Hawk County and a lot of other municipalities in the state of Georgia, including the city of Flowery Branch.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay. All right. Post 1.
Approve.
Post 2.
Approve.
Post 4.
Approve.
Any? Okay. Moving right along. The next one is the public hearing and the first reading of ordinances 738. That's for the annexation of 4560 Hog Mountain Road.
Ordinance 738 is a first reading of ordinance to annex and bring within the corporate limits of the city of Flowery Branch, state of Georgia, real property totaling 49.81 plus or minus acres of land owned by Mary Elizabeth Hickman et al., identified as 4560 Hog Mountain Road, Hog County, tax parcel 08097000005, and is shown on attached Exhibit A, providing for severability, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for an effective date, and for all other lawful purposes.
Okay.
Make a motion to deny ordinance 738.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion to deny, and we have a second. Any more discussion? Post 1.
Approve.
You approved the denial. Well, you approved the denial. Yes. Post 2.
Approve the denial.
Post 4.
Approve the denial.
Okay. Okay, ordinance 738 did not pass. Okay. Next, we don't have to do 739, is that right? No, so we'll skip 739 because it's mute now. Next is the approval and first reading and public hearing for ordinance 742.
Ordinance 742 is the first reading of an ordinance to annex and bring within the corporate limits of the City of Flowery Branch, State of Georgia, real property totaling 19.398 plus or minus acres of land owned by CD2 Properties, LLC, identified as 4651 and 4665 Hog Mountain Road, Hall County, tax parcels 15046 00008B and 15046 00008, and as shown on attached Exhibit A, providing for severability, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for an effective date, and for all other lawful purposes.
Okay, so we have a motion there.
I move to deny ordinance 742.
We have a motion and a second to deny that ordinance 742. Post 1?
Approve the denial.
Post 2?
Approve the denial.
Post 4?
Approve the denial.
Okay. All right, we go to next the approval of ordinance 743, and that's the first read of the public hearing.
I think we're at,
Oh, wait a minute. That was,
Basically, just accept the withdrawal.
yeah, that's 744.
Yeah, so 743 was moot, so you're moving on to 744? 744, you need to make a motion to approve the withdrawal at the request of the applicant.
Okay, so we,
I'm sorry, didn't realize my button wasn't pushed. The council should just make a motion to approve the applicant's request to withdraw.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the withdrawal of ordinance 744 at the applicant's request.
Second.
more discussion then? And that was 744. Okay, all those in favor? No, post 1.
Approve.
Aye.
Okay. And lastly, we have the consideration of resolution 25-005.
Resolution 25-005 is a resolution to establish the tax year 2025 estimated rollback millage rate.
Make a motion to approve resolution 25-005.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. Any more discussion? Post 1.
Do we have to say what that number is? We didn't say that. And we have to say that we approve the rollback to the number.
It's in the resolution, so as long as you approve the resolution, it's fine.
Approve.
Post 2.
Approve.
Do you have a executive session?
We do for personnel, pending litigation, and property acquisition, disposition.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of pending litigation, personnel, and property acquisition and disposition. Aye.
I thank everybody for staying here. A long meeting for us, so and you too. So we appreciate you coming. You may stay. We'll be back.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. We're adjourned.
Then we need to, let's adjourn the regular meeting, shall we? I'll make that motion. Second.
Who seconded? Who seconded it?
That was Joe Mezzanotte. Aye. Well, I'm staying here. I'm not leaving.
He wants to stay. Okay, can we leave the lights on if Joe says? Okay.